October 26, 1919, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi was born. He studied in Switzerland and he attended military school before he moved back to his home country, Iran. A little bit after his 22nd birthday, on September 16 of 1941, he took the throne of Iran due to the passing of his father. Soon after he became king, there was a contest of control in Iran between the professional politician Mohammad Mossadegh and the Shah. In 1951, Parliament voted for oil nationalizations and the Shah appointed Mossadegh a prime minister. But in 1952, the Shah refused his demands for control of the armed forces and Mossadegh resigned. Years after being in power, he dismissed Parliament and launched the White Revolution, which was an aggressive modernization program that led to rapid urbanization. A lot of you may know Iran was a country, or is today, is a country where a lot of women don't have rights. Their economy is crashing. Khamenei basically is ruling the country right now. A lot of people look at Iran today and they see poverty, they see third world, they see people with no rights. I personally visited the country myself when I was 18, and it was a complete culture shock for me, coming from a place like this, like America, where we live, all the freedom and all the rights that women specifically have, and going into a country where women have to cover themselves and are not allowed to drive on certain days, and basically are not allowed to, be even in the streets with another male unless he's your husband or your father. But seeing the country like that and knowing that my parents lived there obviously before the Shah was overruled, I see pictures of my mother and she is walking through the streets and dressed the way that we are now. So Iran wasn't always what it is today. Iran was one of the most underdeveloped nations in the world during the 1940s. The Shah came into power, the economy boomed, the development and progress of the country grew, everything from education, economy, rights for women, and land reform. Tehran funded study abroad in Europe for Iranians, and schools and clinics were built throughout the Iranian countryside to care for poor children as part of the Shah's White Revolution. So it wasn't as bad as people think it was. It was actually a beautiful country with a lot of freedom. Iran's economy and society became outstanding models of development with its income per capita, and it was less than 100 jumped to 2,400 in 1978. From 1941 to 1979, Iran was ruled by the king Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. He was known as the last Shah of Iran. On February 11 of 1979, the Islamic Revolution swept the country and the government was replaced with the Islamic Republic. The Shah had been targeted for many years. They tried to overrule him many times. They tried to kill him many times. And eventually, in 1964, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini was a former professor of philosophy who had been exiled after speaking harshly against the Shah's recent and reform programs. This is a person who was after him from the day that he took the throne. In 1973, the Shah knew he had lymphatic cancer, so he was very ill. And in this time, he knew that his life was short, and he was watching his country fall apart as riots were happening and people were going into the streets, and just killings everywhere. On September 8th, the regime imposed martial law. Weeks later, the government workers began to strike. On October 31st, oil workers went on strike. Khomeini had been coordinating this upsurge from Iraq to France, demanding the Shah's abdication for a while. So by January of 1979, the Shah and his family had to fled Iran. And the Shah, I believe, came to the United States for medical reasons because of his cancer. And then he ended up going to Cairo, Egypt, and he died on July 27 of 1980. It is a rumor, I am not sure if it's true, that his son is still somewhere here actually in California. But I'm not 100% positive if that's true or if that's just guess. Um, the reason why this person is very important to me, for one, my parents lived in Iran. My mom and my dad were in the revolution. They actually lived it. So this isn't just history to me, it's something that happened to my family. They fled the country just like a lot of other Iranians did. They walked to Turkey, and then they took a flight from Turkey with their visas, and they came to America to start life all over again. So when the Shah was in power, Iran was a beautiful country. It was a free country. It was a country that was growing economically, and it just fell apart. And now it's just a very Islamic and sad, and just, I don't even know how to explain the feeling that I got when I went to that place and the things that I saw. I promised myself I would never go back. So Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the last Shah of Iran, was definitely a cultural hero.